Then thanks everyone for coming on to tonight's Geoengineering Free Canada's talk. And tonight we are going to talk about something very serious that's going on here in Canada. But before we go into and start talking, I would like to make you guys aware of something that we have published. We have published, ooh, you probably can't really see this because of the camera in my background here. We have published a book, Where Has Our Blue Sky Gone? And this book is an educational book for children. And it's nicely and wonderfully illustrated by Stella Q. She's our wonderful artist. And she is also certainly one of the co-authors, myself and Dan Fournier, an investigative journalist here in Canada out of Quebec. So this is what I would like to show you guys. Maybe you can take a moment and go on our website. It's under geoengineeringfreecanada.com/books. You can find some more details about it and how to order it as well and help us to get this out to the public and educate the children, because I think that's very, very, very important to start educating the children. Anyway, okay, let's get this going. So what the hell is going on in Nova Scotia? I would like to introduce you to our featured guest tonight. It's a returning guest. Wonderful to have you, Peter McIsaac. He is a retired firefighter, what's it called? A game warden and conversation. What's it called?
Well, when I started way back in the day, Bettina, it was a game warden. Then they changed it to conservation officer.
Conservation officer. That's what it is. Okay. Anyway, so, and now he's a best-selling author as well. And he published a book, and he just told me that he's going to publish a second book now. It's not available yet, but it's coming out soon. Anyway, so let's get this going. Peter McIsaac is from Nova Scotia, so it's firsthand information. Okay, let's get this started. Thank you very much, Peter, for coming on tonight.
Well, thanks for the invite, guys. So I would say probably a good portion of the world now knows some of the lunacy that's happening down in Nova Scotia. And back in the end of June, our Premier, Tim Houston, who seems to be exhibiting some signs of PTSD from what happened here in 2023. I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt, saying it's PTSD, but I think it's part of a much bigger plan. He declared a fire ban in the province and completely ignored something that's called the fire weather data, the fire weather index. And that's the system, guys, that's used all across North America to determine fire weather behavior and travel bans, restrictions, all the type of things that you can do. And so my 29 years fighting fires, every day during fire season, we would check that data, and that would let you know exactly what was probably going to be happening down the road. You know, if a fire started, we could make early preparations. And then we knew when we could issue permits, when we couldn't. There was a whole series of things. And that system's been in place since 1970. And on July 30th, the Premier decided to ignore that entire system and put a ban on fires in Nova Scotia. And the ban on fires, when you put that in, 40% of the province on that FWI system was in low to moderate, which means low to moderate, you could be burning brush at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on your property. So he panicked, worried about something that, you know, things got screwed up so bad down here in 2023 that he put that ban in place. And being the fine gentleman that he is, he tacked a $28,872.50 fine for defying his decrees. And so at the time, myself and some of the people that I work with the Independent Nova Scotia Initiative, we started doing legal work, putting together potentially a charter challenge. Some of the work that we're doing down here now, we've had a lot of experience. We're back in court here on September 5th with a charter challenge against the election call. And we realized right away that it was a Section 1 charter challenge where you lack proportionality. The government can't put legislation in place if there's the option to make it proportional. And without it being a charter violation. I'll give you an example, guys. If it's really dry in the Okanagan Valley out there, but up in the northern section of your province, you've had 4 inches of rain, you don't put a travel ban on the entire province. You put a travel ban if you have to in the Okanagan Valley. And that makes sense. But the Premier decided a couple of days after the fire ban in place that he would put, for the first time in North American history, a 10-week, 2.5-month travel ban from coast to coast Nova Scotia. And he decided to ignore the fire weather index data that the province has relied on since 1970 and over my entire career to make fire-based decisions. And that also got a $28,872.50 sign. So while I was down here dealing with some of the guys on our board saying, how are we going to do this? Jeff Evely, a retired military officer down in Sydney, that would be on Cape Breton Island down here. Jeff gave me a call. He said, Pete, I'm going to get a ticket. I'm going to get standing for Supreme Court, and I'm going to get in, and I'm going to be able to, with standing, be able to challenge this under our charter. So there's Section 6 limitations on freedom of movement, a couple of things, but one of the big ones is lack of proportionality. So what I suggested to him was, I said, well, because I used to be a game warden conservation officer, I said, Jeff, make it simple on yourself. Go call one of them up, arrange to meet him in the woods, and then say, stand here for a minute, walk in the woods, turn around, walk out, then he's obligated to give you a ticket. Well, you know, he's a military guy, grabbed the bull by the horns. Instead of doing that, he drove right up to their office, went in, walked across, made arrangements with them, walked across the lawn, walked into the hardwood bushes, about 13 steps in, 13 steps out, and got himself that fine. And that opened the door to a Supreme Court challenge here in the province. And since then, guys, I think we're up to now, I think 10 tickets have been issued. We had a meeting today with the lawyer for the JCCF that's representing them. I think the CCF from out in Alberta, they're down here now, actually today, opening another charter case. And we had rain in the middle of the province once again on August, I believe, overnight on the 17th and the 18th, where our fire weather indexes dropped back down to where less than 50% of the province was an extreme. So here's the situation in Nova Scotia today so that you guys can get a real handle on this. Our entire tourism industry has basically been wiped out. Anybody that was planning to come down here has no intentions to come back down now because our premier is unpredictable. You can't plan to come down here for 2 weeks in a province that's 75% forest and, you know, go into our parks and do some of these things. And now you can't do it without a risk of a fine. You can't even stop on the side of the road, let your kid go into the woods, have a pee without that kid getting a ticket. Right. So that's how extreme the premier is. And that's what we're dealing with. So I'm watching Gail going. So in every interview that I give on this, basically everybody's saying that people are going, am I hearing, are you right? For the thing? So here's a couple of the other things that you need to know, guys. And I'll shut up here in about 60 seconds, but you can get travel permits to go into the woods for industrial operations, pulp operations, mining, a few other things, but you can't take a cell phone with you or a smartwatch because someone said that told the province that those could start a fire. And if it's caused by an electrical fire, they don't have the equipment to be able to put it out. Meanwhile, they didn't ban electric vehicles in the woods, but they banned your cell phone and your smartwatches. And one more thing before I go back to you, Bettina, is that in 2012, they shut down our, beginning in 2012 and over the next year or two, they tore down all our fire towers. And I think out in Alberta, you guys still have over 120, and in BC, I know you have a number of them in remote areas as well. Nova Scotia has none left. And in 2012, the province made a decision that they would rely on people in the woods with cell phones to be their new early warning system. And that early warning system, it no longer exists because the premier has banned those early warning people with cell phones who travel in remote areas from going into those areas and be our early warning system. So there's a whole lot more to this, but I'll shut up for now and you can start asking questions or start commenting and pass it off to anybody else that's in here, Bettina.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Please feel free to ask questions. Open up your mics. We're ready to hear your questions.
Graham or Darren, do you guys have any questions?
Come on, Darren, you just wrote about this and it was a really good post.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any questions yet. I mean, I don't know that I agree with travel bans into the woods in any instance. I'd be curious as to guess your thoughts on Newfoundland's approach, which I got some flack for because I said, as far as I'm concerned, they can find people whatever they want for lighting fires in the bush under a fire ban because I'm not going to light, the average citizen shouldn't be lighting fires in the bush under a fire ban anyway. So I think I would have rather seen an increase in fines in that direction as opposed to telling me where I can and can't go. And I'd be wondering also how they're dealing with the Indians. I mean, as an Indian, there's no way they're going to tell me I'm not going in the bush. That's just not going to happen. That's where I get my meat. That's where, so it's going to create, because my assumption, I'm going to go ahead and make the assumption and say that if a treaty Indian in Nova Scotia wants to go in the woods, he's not going to have a problem doing it.
Yeah,
So again, we're going to start this class divide again, where
Yeah.
one set of citizens can do something and the other set of citizens can't, and it's kind of getting to a boiling point. That sort of stuff is getting to a boiling point already. So it just seems crazy to me to start telling people where they can and can't go on. I don't care. My point of view would be I don't care how bad the fire hazard is. It's my responsibility to go in there and not start a fire. And if I do, then I can be held. You can hold me criminally liable. You can hold me financially liable. You can do whatever you want to do. Now, I would argue that I paid a bunch of taxes that are supposed to go into programs that are supposed to protect these things instead of going to Ukraine and these other places, so that when I go into the woods, they do have the resources to come and get me if my boat flips over. Not that I would ever expect that it's the government that's coming to get me if my boat flips over.
So those are good points, Darren. So the issue is in Nova Scotia, the ban doesn't apply to Indigenous folks. They could come and go as they please because it's a charter right violations. But our premier basically disregards the charter. I will tell you this: there's not a CO that I've talked to that is willing. They're not going to write a ticket if somebody's a native. If a native wants to invoke their rights to hunt, fish, do what they want to do, they can do it. But I'll give you an example. Okay, so like I said, I fought fires for 29 years. I've been IC on over 100 fires. That's incident commander, right? I've been on fires up to 60,000 acres, and I was a conservation officer at the same time. Because we don't fight many fires in the winter, but personally, I'm not allowed to walk 100 yards through the woods to go fishing. For the first time in my life, I'm 67 years old. I haven't been able to go trout fishing in Nova Scotia in August in my entire life. And over my career, I've seen drier summers. I've seen drier weather patterns. I've seen all kinds of different things. So what we're looking at here is proportionality. And I agree with what you're saying. In Nova Scotia, there's legislation, and we invoked it back in, I remember invoking it back in the 80s and the 90s, where, as you said, if you go in and you light a fire and you're charged for that, the fine in Nova Scotia for an illegal fire startup was $237. But that wasn't what kept you from doing it. The issue is you could be legally billed for the entire suppression cost. So a lot of small fires, the number one cause of fires in Nova Scotia is arson. And that's over double the second source of fires, and that's what they call debris fires. And our debris fire numbers have gone up over 20% since 2000 and I believe 2000 and it's either 15 or 17 when they removed the paper permit system. When I was working at DNR, if you wanted to burn throughout the day, anything other than a cooking or a campfire, you had to come into our office and get a paper permit. And the paper permit, we were very specific on what we gave you for conditions. For example, if you wanted to do brush burning, you had very strict conditions. You had to have charged water on hose. You had to have shovels, 2 people. You had to have a means of communication, and you had to scrape the ground down to what we call bare mineral soil first. So everything that we used to do was designed to tackle individuals with individual cases. And so the biggest thing that we used to do, at least 50% of the time, I would be able to talk people out of setting fires. You could write conditions on the permit, and we'd say can't burn until it's raining. And they say, well, how am I going to light a fire in the rain? I said, the second it starts raining, light your fire. You don't have to worry about embers, and we don't have to worry about putting your fire out and you burning out your neighbors, and then you're going to bill you 30 or 40 grand for putting out a fire. So at least half of the people who applied for permits changed their mind and decided not to burn. And then we'd also say, why don't you wait till after October 15th? Well, that system, when they got rid of the paper permit and went to a daily ban, or a daily system, where right now in the province, we have 31 weather stations that take fire weather data every day at noon. And then it's posted online at 2 p.m. And then a big weather map comes up for the entire province, and anybody before they burn goes to that map, and it tells you, for example, we've had fire bans all throughout the summer. And they'd be like, for example, if you look in the hilly country up in, further up north or out closer to the seashore, you've got completely different weather than you have in Okanagan Valley. And it's the exact same thing, guys, down here in Nova Scotia. What happens down in our Annapolis Valley is completely different than what happens on the mountainous sections of Cape Breton Island. And so what happens is when that fire weather map comes up, if the southern end of the province had 2 inches of rain, they can carry on as usual. And if Cape Breton, for example, hasn't had rain for 3 weeks, you're not allowed to burn until it rains again. It's that simple. But they don't put in travel burns, because travel burns, as the province said, they banned people from walking in the woods. And not only over my tenure as 29 years, I started doing all the research I could through every resource I could find, AI, everything. And there's never been a forest fire in Nova Scotia started by walking in the woods or fishing, ever. Not once. As a matter of fact, one more thing. More people in Nova Scotia have been killed by coyotes than by forest fires. We've never had a person killed by a forest fire in Nova Scotia, and we've had one woman killed by a coyote.
How are they going to deal with the hunters? Bow season starts in like a week. And you mentioned the Bill of Rights. I mean, the Bill of Rights extends well beyond me to, I mean, you guys have lots of moose out there. How many Nova Scotians are relying on that annual moose to put 200 pounds of meat in their freezer?
Well, it's not even so much moose right now. For example, even some areas to access down along the shore to be able to fish mackerel. My entire life, I put up a bucket of mackerel every fall. Right, there's areas there that I'm not going to be able to access. I can't access right now to some of my favorite mackerel fishing places, because the province said, well, you can go to a beach in Nova Scotia as long as it's a short walk. So I called fire control and said, how far is a short walk? I said, to some people it's 10 feet, to somebody else it's a half mile. Well, we don't have a definition of that. And that's when I had asked, I said, well, what about golf courses in the woods? Well, we're not shutting them down either. Okay, so does it apply to natives? Well, no. Okay, so last week, I'll give you an example, guys, here in Nova Scotia. We have something called the Clam Bay Sandcastle Competition. And they get about 10,000 people. For that little community, it's the biggest tourism event of the year. And all the vendors had already bought all their stuff, hot dogs and ham, all this stuff. They were going to look after a crowd of 10,000 people. And out of the blue on last Wednesday afternoon, after lunch, they canceled it. And they said, well, given current conditions, which we've had these conditions on and off for the last, well, I'm 67, so probably the last 67 years
That's hunters. He just wrote it.
Whoops. I think that's Mark. If you want to mute that, Mark. So anyways, guys, so that's how ridiculous some of this. So they canceled that without warning. All those vendors got screwed, right? Right now, what Darren was saying is I just saw today they're making a change saying that you can get a permit to go in and set up your bear baits, but all the deer hunters, right? This is the time of year, guys, they should have been setting up their baits 3 weeks ago. They should have been on the deer stand hunters are trying to get stuff done. Migratory bird starts early down here. Small game season opens October 1st. The main migratory bird season opens October 7th, and they're telling people like me, so I'm allowed to get 2 deer a year, and I guarantee you 2 deer a year go in the freezer, because for breakfast 2 mornings ago, I was still having deer tenderloin and eggs, right? So what happens is there's a whole, even with some of the things that have happened here in the last 2 years, just the cost of food, the amount of poaching in Nova Scotia has doubled in the last 2 years. But the province is determined to make an example of anybody who goes in the woods. So what Jeff Evely did he put the civil back, he's put the civility back in civil disobedience, but just going in, talking to a couple of game wardens, conservation officers, walked across the lawn, went in the woods, come up. Now he has a court case. And earlier today, I met with that lawyer. They're going to have me in for an expert witness on the case because I'm going to bury them. Just bury them.
Peter, Sherry's got her hand up. So Sherry, go right ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, actually, I'll succeed to Doreen if you'd like to go ahead, because I was actually going to raise a question about the post that you just shared a link with. Do you want to do that, Doreen, or?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Peter if he's aware of Nova Scotia apparently approved glyphosate spraying on 3,577 acres of drought-stricken, fire-prone forest.
Yes, I am actually. And I
Yeah.
also know that for the first time that anybody can recall, they're not posting the locations. And the reason they're not posting the locations is because the new communication minister working for the premier was a person on the committee that put pressure on the government that were spraying glyphosates, that they didn't want those areas mapped, and the province went along with it. And now that person is the head of communications here for the premier in Nova Scotia. And by the way, guys, the premier's a Mason, and the head of fire control in Nova Scotia, who was hired on in 2000, I believe it was 2011, had zero experience fighting fires, none, zero. And 3 of the 4 people on the hiring committee were brother Masons, and they gave him a job. And the entire system has fell apart since 2012. And because he's a brother Mason, the premier won't get rid of him.
So I just wonder if everybody understands what the bigger picture is here. I mean, these are really unusual times. A lot of people refer to it as end times, and apparently the ancient multi, this is how I refer to them, the ancient multi-generational satanic cult that has controlled this planet forever knows what's going on. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to, I think, become gods and rule the planet. It's insane what's happening. They're literally exterminating us in every way they possibly can. And these fires, I think, ultimately are going to end up saying, well, you know, you can't hunt now because of the forest fires. You can't have wood burning stoves or fireplaces, you know, in your home to heat yourself. They'll drive the price of heating up and people will freeze to death. I mean, it's endless.
So when Nova Scotia first set this ban up, the next thing they did was they opened a rat line for the Stasi to call in, basically.
See?
Well, that happened right away, but already calls have come in. We had a couple of cold mornings here, like it was down to 8, 7, 8 degrees, and some people threw the wood stove on, and people were calling in people that had smoke coming out of their homes' chimneys and ratting them out. So the problem we're facing down here in Nova Scotia, guys, is kind of that what they call the Pareto principle, where 20% of the people do 80% of the work, and 20% of the people the CIA refers to as goats that can't be controlled. And they just after all the rain we just had, and everything down to basically as low, the lowest reading that you can get in the fire weather index, they ran a poll earlier today, and out of that poll, they had 80% of the people that responded saying it's not time to lift the ban. Because the premier has dominated, he's dominated the media, and every day, every headline down here on the news opens up with today's wildfire report. Well, when I was working at DNR, it was forest fires. Now they changed the word to all across Canada. That's been changed to wildfires because wildfires are like the boogeyman, right? And they're scarier. But these aren't, like, I've been on what you call a wildfire, and there's a difference between a forest fire and a wildfire. And a wildfire, sometimes you'll see fire spreads. You've got, when you've got flames that are moving 60 kilometers an hour, that's a wildfire, right? You get in front of it, you're dead. And so now, no matter what, a grass fire down here, now they call it a wildfire. Everything's a wildfire. And so down here in the media, guys, I grew up on Cape Breton Island, and I grew up surrounded by scrappers, just like back in Braveheart. Like, and if you needed a punch in the head, you got it. And then somebody hauled you up off the ground, shook your hand, and you kind of went, yeah, I probably had that coming. That's how I grew up down in Cape Breton. And now I have never seen people turn softer in a couple of days in my entire life. There is no push. So the people pushing back are the people who pushed back against COVID as well. And anybody, for example, that's driving around still with a mask in their car, guaranteed they think this is the greatest thing ever, right? But the reality of it is, guys, we've got a very, very slippery slope that's happening here, because what's happening is this is the first large scale climate lockdown for a duration of 10 weeks in the history of North America. California doesn't do this, right? Where they have, they get hundreds of people that get killed in forest fires and big forest fires all across. Nobody has ever tried to pull this off before. And because Tim Houston has the premier's background, he was involved with the Paradise Papers. He also worked intimately with BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And he came out of nowhere to come here to become the premier. And he's doing things, there's 100% guarantee he's not a conservative, even though it's the Progressive Conservative Party. I saw a picture of him here recently where he was up in Ontario at a barbecue that Chrystia Freeland was having, and it was virtually all high-end liberals, including Jean Chrétien. And there's Doug Ford with Tim Houston. So there's a bigger thing going on down here too, no, guys, because this is not a really big crowd, and I'm going to say this. So is that a mountain lion, Graham? It's not a mountain lion, is it?
Yeah, no,
Nope.
it's my
you're good.
coyote. It's my coyote.
So anyways, Tim Houston right now, guys, wants to put in the largest offshore wind power production setup on the eastern seaboard of North America. And it's going to cost billions and billions. And the only way he can finance this here in Nova Scotia is he's going to need backing from Mark Carney. And at that barbecue, he was meeting with top liberals, and he's also already met with Mark Carney. And if anybody's read Mark Carney's book that's called Values, I mean, he's evil compounded with a big dash of insanity, to tell you the truth. And so he actually believes some of this stuff that he's pushing. The problem is Tim Houston is buying into it too. And because I have to apologize that I helped get Tim Houston elected. And he was a Manchurian candidate that hoodwinked not me, he hoodwinked hundreds of people in the province. And after he got elected, he did a straight 180. And he turned into like the worst possible thing that you could ever have. By the way, on a federal level, him and Doug Ford are the only two two premiers who haven't congratulated Pierre Poilievre on his win. Right? Like most people don't know that, right? So what we're dealing with Tim down here is you're dealing with the worst of the worst. And so here's what I foresee. If he gets away with this, the next place that you'll see it instituted, we were on a talk show here with Freedom Train International on Saturday night. I had Jeff Evely on as a guest, actually. And Jeff was, we were talking about where this is going. And the next place they'll try to initiate it will be Australia. Australia, they're as bad as Nova Scotia. And because they're under the same parliamentary system, they'll be able to get away with it. And that's one of the biggest concerns that we're having right now. So right now, Nova Scotia is the testing ground. And, Tim Houston is saying it's for your own safety, comrades. But that's not the reality of it all, guys. This is a test. And with the numbers that they're looking at from that poll today, the test is they're doing pretty good in the test. When you get 80% support for this level of charter crushing stuff, and then, there's a couple other things too that people need to be aware of that are happening down here as well. So last year, we don't have the numbers. What's the population in BC, guys?
I believe 8 million.
Yeah, so down here, we only have 1.1 million. And last year we had 77 fatal car crashes and 180 some people, crippled, like smashed up pretty bad. So if he can get away with this for our safety, someone's going to have to explain to me why he can't on this upcoming long weekend. Even this weekend, he'd say, look, we've looked over the data. Last year we had 77 people killed. I think just to flatten the curve, we're going to start limiting where people can and can't go on long weekends. Just for this long weekend and just for a trial, we're going to have you stay home and see how many people are saved, how many road fatalities we can cut back on. And if he can win with the case that it's for your safety, comrade, for what he's doing here with fires, when he's ignoring the data, how can he not get away with it when he's actually using real data? So this is an extremely slippery slope. So Darren, down here, what we're really hoping for is you're not hearing a lot of big pushback from the native community, but I haven't seen anyone just come out yet on a talk show or in any way say, no, this flat out doesn't apply to us. Because the other thing that's just a wedge. The other thing is, that's just one more wedge to try to put one group fighting against the other group.
Peter, Troy's got his hand up, and then after that, there is Jim Lee from climatebureau.com. Go ahead, Troy.
Let me get my stuff on here. Sorry, I'm canning.
Good for you.
I'm trying to get some food in the pantry, you know.
Haven't seen you in a while, Troy.
No, it's been almost 24 hours. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch base on the hunting thing and whatnot. I've got a hunting blind out in the woods, and my plan, I was waiting for things to dry up on my blind so I could fix the roof on it. And when that opportunity came and I was free, the dictator Tim Houston said that we're not allowed in the woods. And so I'm at the point right now that it's pretty wet here now. We got poured rain last night. It rained again this evening. It's nice and wet. I am planning on going in the woods probably this weekend or next week and putting a tarp on my hunting blind, so I'll be prepared for hunting season. I've also thought about maybe if I get caught, then I'll just tell them that I'm native, and seeing as I can identify as a woman if I want, then what problem would they have with me identifying as a native, right? So I shouldn't have to prove it, should I?
I think in Nova Scotia, you're not required to prove it. You can just make a declaration.
There we go. So I think that's what I'm going to use. The reason why I called Tim Houston a dictator is Peter had mentioned about some court dates that are coming up. Tim Houston, his first law that he made here in Nova Scotia was to have fixed elections, and then he broke his own law by calling a snap election. And so that's why Peter and some other people have some issues, because they wouldn't allow independent candidates on the ballot, and so that's a whole other can of worms. You already talked about him being part of BlackRock. I believe he was the accountant for BlackRock. He lived down in Bermuda for 10 years before he came back here came here and became our premier. And the glyphosate, the spraying last year was stopped because of protesters in the woods. And so it seems pretty convenient that they are banning people from the woods while they want to do the spraying. So it seems too good to be true for the people who want to spray and kill a bunch of the vegetation in the woods. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. Like I hunt, and like I said, I'm canning right now, and so I grow a lot of my own vegetables, and I hunt, and that's how I get my food. And so I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a hunting guide, and he was told that that as it sits right now, nobody's going to be allowed in the woods until October 15th, and so that screws a lot of people over for bear season. Deer, like I said, I should be out there right now prepping stuff, getting my cameras up, see what's going near my blind, and getting some apples out there, seeing if I can get a big buck in there and prepare for hunting season. I think we're a week away from bow season. And so like what a lot of people that I've been speaking with are planning on going out hunting, whether they're allowed to or not. Like what's the difference between getting a poaching fine or a $25,000 fine for being in the woods? Like, are they going to give me both fines or what?
Mm-hmm.
So Troy, there's a meme out there, and it shows a guy hitting a housefly with a sledgehammer. And the meme says, I didn't need a sledgehammer to kill the fly. We used a sledgehammer for the other flies that were watching.
Yeah, that is the truth. And the fear mongering down here is it's off the charts.
Yeah, it's off the charts. Yeah,
there's so many people. Like I do landscaping. I run my own landscaping business, and unfortunately, there's a lot of liberals down here, and so a lot of my clients are liberals, and I just have to smile and nod when they go on about how dry everything is and how dangerous these fires are and everything. Like, I don't know if people really understand how hard it is to light a fire without a lighter and matches and fuel. Like, I've demonstrated. I've made videos of it, lighting my fire in the fireplace with just my flint, and it's not easy. You need dry conditions. You need to blow on it, and so to think that me walking on a paved trail, like the paved trail right down the road from me, is still closed. It's covered in water right now because of the rain. It is still closed. It makes absolutely no sense. But there's lots of hands up, so I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Jim, go right ahead.
Hey, how's it going, Peter? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm curious if you've heard the term hack and squirt, being a firefighter.
Hack and squirt.
Yes, sir.
Hack and squirt. So that's when the guys are digging on, going in with a Pulaski and with a backpack, where they have to dig out and use backpacks. Is that what you're referring to?
No, so this is all right, so I'm going to try to tie a bow on a couple things that,
Okay.
I see as commonalities as it pertains to the climate cult, the technocrats, and wildfires. Generally speaking, what you see in all of these cases is aerial application of herbicides and hack and squirt, which is where they go and they take, basically you take an axe, you go around the base of a tree, you remove bark in a circle all the way around the tree, and then you squirt pesticides, herbicides, things like glyphosate into the tree to kill the, as what they call, invasive species. I have a list of invasive species just for your region: Oriental bittersweet, glossy buckthorn, Norway maple, Scotch pine, multiflora rose, and dog strangling vine. So these are what have been determined. Just, this is not a complete list, but these are just examples of what's been determined as invasive species in Nova Scotia specifically. So what they will do is, and they actually mention an organization. I put a bunch of links, and I tend to reserve commenting till I can, like, really get a feel for, the discussion, and, bring something useful to the commentary. Nova Scotia Invasive Species Council, NSISC. They advocate for this. The Nova Scotia government supports this. This is the Department of Environment and Climate Change oversees pesticide application training, which includes hack and squirt under the Environmental Act and pesticide regulations in Nova Scotia. Same in California. We have the same scenario where we have what's called UN biodiversity corridors, and then we have these invasive species treatments, as they like to call them. And this is all in the name of, we're doing this because climate, because man-made interventions brought these things here. We're trying to save the forest. Even in the case, I've heard a couple deer hunters or hunters in the room. Even here in the Southeast where I live, a lot of the large hunting reserves, especially like paid hunting reserves, they will go out and they will clear large stands of trees using hack and squirt and other methods to, help, people with deer stands, things like that. But in the case of California and Nova Scotia, as I've just spent the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes researching, you have exactly the same problem. When you go and you kill a standing tree through the hack and squirt method, what you're actually doing is you're creating a tinderbox. Because now you have a live dead tree. You're a fire. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but in California, they do not allow people to go through and do forest remediation where they go and they clear underbrush. They go and they, reuse fallen trees. It's free wood. It's laying on the ground. Let us go get it. We'll go turn it into something. And they say no. And then on top of that, they're going out and they're spraying aerial application of pesticides, herbicides. And then you have targeted invasive species killing of trees, all of which lead to wildfire spreading conditions. And I believe the last one is something called switchgrass. You're familiar with this, that usually occurs after wildfires. They call it the mile a minute weed. Have you ever heard of that?
We don't get that down here.
Okay. I don't know about, the locality there. I know that it's prevalent here in the United States. After wildfires occur, we get a lot of switchgrass growth, which just exacerbates the problem. But the fact that, to this day, most people have never even heard the term hack and squirt. They aren't aware of what, these people are doing. And the logging industry is another big promoter of aerial herbicide spraying and hack and squirt, because long pines generate long boards, generate revenue. Softwood, broadleaf trees, they're seen as a problem because they don't generate a lot of revenue, and obviously they don't make very good boards in their opinion. So the logging industry also is just as much to blame as the climate cult. So on the one side you have the capitalists, and on the other side you have the capitalists, because let's be real, it's all about monetizing the CO2 fear. In both of these cases, you have people dumping chemicals in the forest, which are leading to these wildfires. This is all easily predictable. And I'm not even going to get into the over 135 cases of arson I was able to pull up in the last 3 years, and just in Nova Scotia and British Columbia. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I wasn't aware that people were actually doing that. Don't get me wrong. I know the odd neighbor gets pissed off at another neighbor and will do that to one of his trees. I've heard of it, where people will just take a hypodermic and put Roundup under the bark of a hardwood tree to kill it. I had no idea, to be honest with you, that they were actually doing that here in Nova Scotia, but I'm going to follow up on it. In Newfoundland, for example, on Crown land, when they have dead wood, for example, like hurricane downed wood, they allow the people in Newfoundland to go gather that wood up for free and use it for firewood, whatever they want to do with it. All they care about is that it gets cleaned up. In Nova Scotia, there's two things we don't allow. We don't allow people to salvage wood. And we had a major hurricane here a couple of years ago. And something different happened with that hurricane. It came in from one direction, and it almost looked like a giant snowshoe, flattened the trees all in one direction. And then the wind swung around and came in from another direction and layered another group of trees across them in a crosshatch section. You can't walk through those sections of forest in Nova Scotia. They haven't been cleaned up. They've been on the ground now for 3 years. When fire starts in them, their only way to deal with them, it'll be all aerial attack or just let it burn out. You're not going to be able to put men or equipment in there. And the province dropped the ball on any of the cleanup, and they won't allow people to clean it up. Now, the other tool that I know they use a lot of in the US, and I know they use it in Alberta, and I think they use it in BC as well. And that's planned burning, where they'll burn out the underbrush, control burns. Nova Scotia control burns are illegal. You're not allowed to do a back burn. You're not allowed to burn out underbrush. As a matter of fact, the big fire that we have, in Nova Scotia terms, a big fire that we have ongoing right now that's causing all the commotion. When they were putting through a fire break, the simple thing to do, as soon as the fire break was pushed, when they had teams with hoses right there they could have done what was called a slight back burn and burned that brush off for 30, 40 feet back in so it met the oncoming fire. And when that happens, when two fires meet one another, they put themselves out. Nova Scotia, you're not allowed to do that. So we can't clean up the underbrush. We had two major pulp companies in Nova Scotia. One of them went out of business here a number of years ago, and they just announced a final pullout here just in the last 2 months, I believe. and all of the underbrush cleaning and the spacing and the work that they did in the silviculture work, that all came to an end when they shut down, and all those managed forests now aren't being managed by anybody anymore. So now it's a mess. So I can go from one bad decision to another bad decision, where Nova Scotia right now is engulfed in a series of bad decisions on all fire management things. And it all stems from something that started here in the mid-90s, and that's when DEI hiring began. Our entire government system in Nova Scotia right now is full of DEI hires, people hired based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's government policy. For example, if 10 people go in that are, let's say every one of us here went in the room, we're all equally qualified. It would come down between, okay, first of all, the Caucasian males, you're off the list. You're not getting hired. Then it goes down to the gals. And if you're gay, then if you're not gay, then you're off the list. If you're not, then you're off the list. So it's down to gay, and then Darren's Indigenous. So then it would come down to Darren and the gay gal. And by policy in Nova Scotia, and this was just around the time that I rehired, all hiring now has to be based on that. And so what happens is that's why at our Helitack branch right now, we're supposed to have 4 helicopters with 6 pilots. We have 4 pilots. We're supposed to have 6 pilots. Our whole summer, we had 2 pilots. And we crashed a helicopter through mechanical failure. And nobody's saying that it's not DEI hires mechanics, but they're looking for a new mechanic within 2 days of that crash. And that pilot was a good buddy of mine. I flew him probably 40 times. So his career is over. So now we're down to, for our firefighting contingent in Nova Scotia, is 1 pilot and 3 helicopters. And the Premier's not telling the public that. And beginning in 2000, when everyone was beating the climate change drum, rather than double down and double our firefighting capacity, they cut it in half. Our fire crews used to have 5 people in each district of 27 districts. Now it's down to 3, and in one of the in central Nova Scotia, in an area called Truro. I worked in that district for 10 years. On this long weekend when everything was extreme, and they had it shut down that Clam Harbor Sandcastle thing, there were only 2 inexperienced fire crew staff for the entire firefighting contingent in that entire area, the 3rd biggest community in Nova Scotia. So what we're dealing with down here right now is a bunch of things. We have a bigger issue with the Premier, right? We have a climate agenda that Mark Carney wants to push, and that our Premier has bought into. We have DEI hiring practices. We have an allotment of money that's been continually cut away from our firefighting capacity. We have spraying glyphosate where people don't know it is in the middle of what they call, you have to have, there's a travel ban. It's so dry, they're claiming, but yet they're spraying glyphosate. And glyphosate works quick, guys. That thing turns into a tinderbox within days, right? I mean, overnight, and I mean, we're talking crispy here. And then, so we have all these things came together in a perfect storm. We've got rid of all our fire towers. We don't have fire towers anymore. We don't have a fire burning permit system where we can give people conditions. For example, in 2023, we had $189 million damage on 2 big fires. One of those fires burnt down 200 homes in a subdivision outside of Halifax. That fire was started by a woman who you weren't allowed to burn till 8 o'clock at night. She started burning at 3:30 in the afternoon when the wind was high. And because she didn't have a permit, she didn't have a hose, she could have looked after it right away. And because that permit system was down, I forget how many thousands of people had to be evacuated, and it was an absolute shit show that we ended up down here. And the after action fire report laid out all the failures and everything that had to be done 2 years ago, and none of it's been done. And if anything, it's getting worse. And like I said, I mean, here we are, they're now hiding where the glyphosate is sprayed. That cut and squirt, I'm going to look into that actually, and I'm going to find out where they're actually doing that. And I'm going to make sure the public in Nova Scotia knows about it, because that's insanity. I mean, those species, if they're big, why wouldn't they drop them and utilize that wood? Let someone come in, cut them down, use them for firewood. I don't care what they use them for, just use them. So what we've got right now, guys, is we have bandits running the province. They've lost on COVID. They lost one COVID case. They said people weren't allowed to, they weren't allowed to get together and have public displays of disobedience. They lost that charter challenge. And now Troy had mentioned, I'm in court here on September the 5th, where 19 independents were kept off the ballot by calling a snap election, violating section 3 of the charter straight up and the Oaks test. And we'll end up winning that case, but it's just a nuisance. But what it does is it proves a pattern with our premier. He doesn't care about the charter, means nothing to him, because he's smart enough to have realized if he can terrify the population in Nova Scotia like he did with COVID, and he's done it with fire, because human beings are easily terrified by fire, right? So that's why we have 8 out of 10 people in Nova Scotia. I thought it was down to 6 out of 10 till I saw that poll, but we've got, between 8 out of 10 and 6 out of 10, but think this is just fine, guys.
Mhm. Peter, there's Mark. He's got his hand up. Go right ahead, Mark.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark. I know Cherie here. I think she invited me to this. Yeah, so I have a big picture question for. Oh, one sec. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, sorry. I have some questions for you, and I'm hoping that it's an unsettling question. The reason I'm saying that is there may be an elephant in the room that we can at least ponder in the interest of winning and winning everything.
Okay.
Now, if we can't face up to that, that kind of explains why we lose. So it kind of goes along like these lines. The people that are doing this to us, they are extremely organized. And not only are they organized locally, they're actually organized worldwide. And they do everything in total lockstep. Now, these people are retards, okay? All of their ideas are retarded. Idea generation is exclusively an activity for real adults. They are coming up with ideas because they are pretending to be adults, right? Now look in this room here. You've got a filter for the most extreme adults who've made their way through this whole schmozzle, and each of you is a highly individualistic person. You don't have any replacement parents like the government. You're easily able to stand on your own 2 feet. So the only way to win is for us to be extremely organized, at least as well as they are, and in a worldwide fashion. Not just one group here and one group there. So what I'm saying is, though, is that the problem that we have in not organizing is the very strength that we have, is that we're individuals. We will not organize just because somebody speaks well and wears a suit. We are extremely resistant to that. So my question remains, and I'm not going to hijack what you're doing. You're on a different subject right now, but I just want you to ponder this. For a bunch of real adults who are the only ones who are going to win this, how do we organize without needing a charismatic leader in a suit? Because if we do, we win everything and it'll be permanent. That's all I have.
Well, Mark, I've been pondering that for a long time. And that's why I show up at every time I get invited into these, because I'm continually looking for ideas. And the one thing that we tried to do down in Nova Scotia was run 55 independents that were bound by a performance-based contract in the last election, where it would be spelled out inside the community, here's what you got to do. And if you don't do it, you can be fired. And it was the first time it would have been able to happen in politics. And we were insisting that in order to us to help anybody, that the people who put their hand up and said, pick me, we were recommended that the community not pick them. We were looking for people that had to be talked into doing it. The real movers and shakers that said, I don't really want to do this. And then we found people that they were doing it for the right reason and not the wrong reason. They weren't doing it because they wanted a pension. They weren't doing it for the money. They were doing it because the right thing to do. And every one of them was planning on only doing it for one term and then quit, find somebody else and
Be a
find
separate
themselves
discussion.
right? Nobody would have sued, just rednecks like myself, really.
Yeah. Bruce, you've got your hand up.
So I'm
Just-
just wondering if
oh, sorry. Mark, are you still on? You're cutting in and out. I'm sorry. We can't really hear
oh,
you.
he was. Oh yeah, he was cutting in and out, and I didn't know if he'd finished talking or not.
Okay.
So yeah, just to finish off, all I'm saying is that another one thing that's unspoken and keeps us from winning is that there's a massive difference between proactive and reactive. Okay. Now it's very easy for us to talk about how screwed up they are and what they're doing wrong, but that's not proactive. Opposite to retards is not a direction. So if the things that I'm saying are uncomfortable, that's good, because that's what happens when there's an elephant in the room. So if we were just talking about ideas, it's very uncomfortable process. You don't really get to talk about what you know. You're mostly talking about what you don't know and you're trying to figure out. So in a room where you're actually committed to talking about ideas, there would be like 90% silence because we'd just be thinking. So again, reactive versus proactive is something that we need to think about because only winning is contained in the proactive. That's it.
Good
Thank you, Mark. Bruce, go right ahead.
Yeah, so Bruce the Moose from the Sting podcast here in New Hampshire / Ohio. But to me, what Mark's just talking about is you got to let people that hunt know that this is going on. I'm gonna reach out to some people that I moose hunted with in Newfoundland and find out what they know. And but it looks like, Graham, are you a podcaster?
Yeah, Darren and I, Darren's my co-host there. Yeah.
Okay, so look, we go live at Thursday nights at 9:00. That's East Coast time. I could fill up a month worth of Thursday night shows with this conversation. So put your thinking hats on. I'm telling you, we got a lot of hunters that follow us. We're on Rumble. We're on the Grassroots Warrior Network. We're called the Sting Podcast. And silence is not the option. It's great that we're having this conversation, but I mean, people are here 8, 12, 16 people. We got to get this word out. It's not on the news. I can tell you that right now. First I heard about it was an email from Bettina to join this podcast. So I never knew. I'm surprised that I'm not hearing from moose hunters here in the Northeast that you can't walk in the woods. That's insane.
Yeah,
So-
one of the guys showed up here yesterday was the guy from Project Veritas come up here to try to get a ticket. Bruce, over in Newfoundland right now, they tried to tell them that they couldn't have ATVs in the woods. Now, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland's doing a little better than Nova Scotia. The Newfoundlanders still got the fight left in them, and they said, we're having none of it. So they said, well, okay, you can still take your ATVs in, but you got to have spark arresters on them, which is not a bad idea in the first place, right? But over there, they just said, the government said, you're not allowed to have ATVs. And they said, really? Good luck with that, pal. And so the government had to back down. And that's all that has to happen in any of the provinces. If enough people say no, then it's no.
It's we the people. I mean, that's what it is. So anyway, I had my hand up because I offer my show, the Sting Podcast. I don't care who you are. Your voice is welcome to be heard. It could be other podcasters like, yeah, you name them. Peter, you're welcome. Jim Lee, you've been on before. Marcus, I see you're in there being quiet. But so
how do I find you, Bruce? Thursday night, Bruce the Moose?
Yes, sir. So look up I tell you, the best thing to do is get on Bettina's email. I'm sure
Okay.
y'all were on that invite.
Yep.
And just, raise your hand and say, hey, we want to be on your podcast, or more discussions about dates or something. And we just need to get the word out down here in the States. The insanity that I'm listening to right now. It's like, what?
Links will be shared in the show notes as well, so everybody have
Yeah.
access to that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the email as Bruce Kennedy. I think it's BJ Kennedy. Yeah, just email me personally, and I'd love to have Peter on. I'd love to have the other podcasters on, Darren, anybody that hunts. I mean, hunts, fishing. If you can't go in the woods, none of that's going to happen.
Well, yeah, I
So-
live for hunting and fishing.
Exactly, brother. Look behind my head.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I seen some nice stuff back there. I wrote a wild book there for you boys down in the U.S. too. It's called the Redneck Conservative.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It's all
But
about
anyway,
hunting.
I'll shut up now. My podcast is open. We do Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're on the Grassroots Warrior Network on Rumble, and be glad to have any of you guys on.
Thank you, Bruce, and we will be on there to promote. Thank
you're
you.
You're coming on what, September the 11th to talk about the
Correct.
book.
We're talking
Right.
about the book. Yes.
Right on. So anytime after September 11th, look at the 18th, the 25th, and then just keep rolling on right into October. But sooner the better.
Thank you.
This Thursday night's open, by the way. But
I got something maybe for you, Bruce. Hey, I don't want to, I missed most of this, so I apologize. I just got back in a little bit ago and jumped in and wanted to see what you guys got. So if this is going to be rebroadcast or played taped, I can watch it later. But I was going to say the nature of this, I've got some people that are highly involved in the forest firefighting industry. I know a lot about that, and if that might be helpful, they're very factual, special ops background people, and that might be helpful. But I think whatever the summation of it is, we do need leaders. I mean, in the U.S. we got Trump, and they're doing all kinds of things to take stuff down. Like Bruce says, they're called the sting because that's what I think is happening. But Canada's a little behind us and more. You guys are using the word retarded. I agree. People they're insane up there. So I think everything is going to come to an end. But if you guys can put something into like a 1-pager, a summary, problem, solution, I do have contacts so we can get stuff to get more attention and maybe the right attention. So I never like to assume that leaders, because there's so much going on, that they know everything. And whatever you guys are talking about, probably don't want to assume that they know that. So if I can help that way, if you guys can put something in a 1-pager, I can push it where it needs to, hopefully where it needs to go.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay. Jim, go right ahead.
Permission to share screen, Mama San.
Woo, you. Okay, 1 second. Where are you? There you go.
A picture is worth 1,000 words, and a map's worth a couple billion. Stella,
You're not there yet. Sorry.
yeah, I know. I'm just buying
Okay,
time.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so
Oh, shoot.
no, you're still failing.
Yeah, I know.
Get off the fail train. In the meantime, I'll run a commercial. Everybody should buy Bettina's latest book. You can do that by going to chemtrailfacts.com/book, and that will redirect you over, and you can purchase a children's book about them chemtrails. You got it now?
No, I don't. I can't.
You got it.
So
All right.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So everybody should be able to see this. This is why when when he was saying that they don't want to disclose the aerial spraying that's going on in Nova Scotia, is because when people can see things like this, it's shocking. It's pretty shocking. It's overwhelming. Red is manual removal of, it says, areas where companies have removed other plants and trees from conifer plantations. This goes right back to what I was telling you. This is the logging industry. They like themselves some pine trees. So when they're saying conifer plantations, they're probably talking about pine trees. And it says with herbicides or by manually cutting them back. Red dots are manual, yellow dots, chemical ground treatment. That's hack and squirt. And then chemical aerial treatment. So you can see clearly all of this blue area is aerial spraying. The yellow dots are hack and squirt, and the rest are literally somebody going in and manually cutting down all of the trees that aren't going to make them some freaking money. And this is just British Columbia. If you look at the statistics in California, the numbers will blow your freaking mind. I looked at 1 year worth of aerial spraying in California. And in fact, I'll bring this up real quick. If you go to climateviewer.news, that's my Substack, and you can just search for wildfires. So if I go to here and I type in wildfire, I should have had this up already. Sorry, apologize. You can look at the numbers, and this shows, you know, the tainted forest. This is all about that. I'll drop that in chat as well in just a second. But hack and squirt is something that most people don't want. How to kill unwanted trees with hack and squirt. This is pretty much, and most of these are, you know, people showing, you know, from different counties showing how to do this. These gray patches you're seeing in the video here are standing dead trees that were killed with hack and squirt. And you can see this through almost every single forest. You know, I follow this stuff, but this is an example just in the state of California. We're talking about glyphosate. It's number 6 in California in one single year. 5,141,000 pounds applied to 2.2 million acres. And you can see all the rest of these. Sulfur takes the cake at 38 million pounds. Mineral oil and a bunch of things I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I actually happen to be a Southern redneck. So you will not, you know, I could try just for your amusement, and methyl dithocarbamate. Most people don't know the names of any of these. We all just, you know, assume that it's glyphosate. You know, we simplify everything. Oh, it's the Roundup. But when this is top 100 chemicals by pounds, total statewide pesticide use in 2022, this is just for California, just in 2022. And then down here is like, you know, all of the different types of herbicides that are sprayed in forests. So when you compare that to what you're seeing here in BC, now imagine what it looks like in the other provinces across Canada and all of the other states where they have not taken the time to even map this stuff out. Why? Because images like this raise public awareness, and it helps you visualize. This is great. Having the numbers, having these things, that's great. It's a good information. It's fuel for the fire that you're going to take to convince others that this is a reality. But being able to correlate the numbers with locations and show you the size and scope visually, that's the kind of stuff that really motivates me. I call this map porn. It's a thing for me. I'm very much into maps. So anytime I can find a mapping source like this, it really helps, you know, drive home the size and scope of the problem we're dealing with. So when you see wildfires in these areas and you know that this is intentional, in a lot of cases, this is not just, like everybody wants to go, well, it's the nefarious New World Order, technocrats, and all this. No, there's a lot of rich, people who are making a lot of money on forestry, and they're doing a bad job at it. And they're using chemicals, and they're doing all kinds of, nasty stuff to achieve their goal, which is sell more, more wood. And at the end of the day, we're really not getting the big picture. So, great find, Stella. But this is the kind of stuff that if we were actually, Mark alluded to, not talking about solutions. Mark, we haven't met before, but I'm one of those guys that you put me in a room with you for 30 minutes and I will not shut the fuck up for the entire time, just spitting solutions out at you left and right. You give me a problem, I'm going to give you 100 solutions, and then we can vote on which one's the best one. Because if you're not being pragmatic, if you're not, if somebody's scaring the hell out of you on the internet and they are, clickbait title, very scary topic, and they're not offering solutions, they are not an activist, they're an info fucking tainer, and anybody who can't see that is being, you're the product. You're what's making them money. I don't care about any of the glory. I don't want any of that. I put the link in chat directly to the map because screw going to that website. I just hacked their webpage real quick and got it directly from arcgis.com. I'll throw that in the chat again. You can use that as fuel for your fire, Peter, just to say, why don't we have this in our province? This is necessary for public engagement. It's necessary for the firefighting industry to be aware of these practices. And you described exactly back to me what I alluded to, that the similarities between California and Nova Scotia are overwhelming, where they're not allowing people to do this type of cleanup in addition to doing this kind of mass damage.
So Quebec, by the way, they've outlawed the use of glyphosate. And if you look at a forest fire map in Nova Scotia right now, every other province is saturated with fires, and Quebec right now has virtually nothing going on. Just saying.
And
Stella.
have you seen, real quick, have you seen any, have you been tracking any of the cases of intentional arson in your location?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the head of fire, so this is kind of weird, right? Because the senior director inside the government who's in charge of fire suppression will not allow the top arson investigator inside the conservation officer unit to go out and investigate fires. We had one right on the outskirts of Halifax, which is the capital of Nova Scotia. It's called the Susie Lake Fire, and it was near a homeless encampment, and they were trying to blame it on them, but that's not the issue. I went out and did my own investigation. I'm a qualified forest fire investigator. The problem is I'm not allowed to walk in the woods right now without getting a $28,000 fine. So I just walked around at the outside perimeter and I found the point of initial ignition. But I couldn't walk in to check patterns and the rest of it. And I went, no, this wasn't an accident. Somebody lit this. And they lit it to try to drive a homeless encampment out of the woods, and they want to put apartment complexes back in there, and it's a simple way to do it. But in just one day alone, on August 13th, in one of our areas, we had 3 arsons in one area. Arson that's out. And because the ban on travel means you can't be in the woods to be able to report suspicious people, because that's how they find arsonists. You say, yeah, I saw somebody coming out there, he's driving a white F-150, something around, a 2000 model, and he had a broken taillight. And that's how they start doing investigations. But they put everybody out of the woods for 10 weeks, man, 2.5 months. Like I said, our entire tourism industry is getting wiped out here. But because nobody's in there to see what's going on, and the head of our forestry branch won't allow our top CO with the most training to go in and do, and this has happened. He called me the other day. He said, Pete, something's something's not right. There's more to this than this. This is a bigger deal. He said, I'm not allowed in to go and investigate cause on that fire. And then they said, well, it was human cause, but they don't want to say that it's arson. And arson's our biggest cause of fire. And here's something on a closed group, I'll tell you right now, guys, is that the technology for lighting fires right now, if you're an arsonist, this is like your heyday. This is not going out anywhere, but what you can do with drones today, you can buy little Mavics that'll fly out 32 kilometers, man, at 120 kilometers an hour. And they can have an incendiary device on them, and you can drop them halfway up a tree to start a fire. And I can tell you that 9 out of 10 fire investigators will go in and look at that. And if the fire looks like it started halfway up a tree, they're going to call it a dry lightning strike. And they're not going to be able to recognize it as a incendiary device. So literally right now, I could be miles for you guys down in the US. I could be 20 miles away. I can fly a drone in 20 miles at 120. So what would that be? That'd be about 70 miles an hour. And I could be back at my vehicle. Nobody knows that I did anything. And I could go out in the run of a day and start nonstop numbers of forest fires. After 911, guys, the United States within months, there's stuff fired. Look, there we go. Yeah, it's keeping firefighters safe and starting fires at the same time, because you can get them actually now that throw off. It's like a plasma that you can ignite. I've watched videos of them. But after 2001 and after 911, guys, I sat in on we had training, and what they were talking about was that fire would eventually be used as the number one tool for terrorism attacks in North America, because the only thing you need to launch that terrorist attack is a pack of matches. And it eats up billions, right? Billions in revenue, and ties up all this type of stuff. So I never talk about what I'm talking about here now, but man, what people can do with drones today and light fires, it's just insanity. And here we are in the province of Nova Scotia, from one end to another. When we got rid of our fire tower system, our early warning system was going to be people in the woods with cell phones. And now they're gone. And we also got rid of, by the way, so you guys will understand this out in BC or in Alberta, is they got rid of our helitack team. And we had a helitack team, which was the tip of the spear. So those are the guys, when the call first comes in, they're in the air within normally 5 to 10 minutes. And they're the first guys on the scene doing an initial attack. Those are your insurance policy that keep fires to 3 to 4 acres instead of burning 30 to 40,000 acres. And we don't have them in Nova Scotia anymore. And when we didn't have them in 2023, we had our largest financial loss to the province and our biggest forest fire, because someone made a decision to get rid of the tip of the spear and cut back on our firefighting capacity rather than double down on it. And that happened in BC too, and it happened in Alberta.
Hey, Peter, how many, so it sounds like it's a multi-pronged thing, but has anyone diagrammed out the top of the chart of why this is happening and who's causing it? And then the ways they go about it? Because you got greedy people, you got stupid, incompetent people, but you got an overarching people, kind of demonic people, I would say, that are trying to cause problems for their own benefit, more than just greed. Has anyone ever kind of mapped this out, the who's who?
I think the amount of research that was been done is just the fact is arsonists are arsonists. And I'll give you an example. In Saskatchewan, they just sentenced a volunteer fire department guy who they convicted of 30 cases of arson. And rather than throw him in jail for 10 years for what he had done, he got 18 months probation and 200 hours community work.
I got another solution for people like that. It's called a bullet.
Yes. So here's the situation: is we have a broken judiciary in Canada as well. I mean, the stuff that you can get away up here with now is just absolute nonsense. But across Canada, not so much here in Nova Scotia, but one of the number one causes, I believe the number one cause of fires in Canada in general is still lightning-based fires. But here's the problem with lightning-based fires. In 2023 in southern Quebec, there were 23 or 26 fires that were as much as 1,000 kilometers apart, and they all lit up at almost the exact same time within a minute. So when someone sent me the video of that. Jim knows the video that I'm talking about. And the smoke at the time, guys, was all blew down into New York while they were having an international climate emergency summit. And that fire, you couldn't have picked better conditions to load up New York. with
And those
smoke.
were arsonists.
And
Those were arsonists. It was confirmed after the fact that those
Yep.
were arsonists. This
They
is
were
like
paid
if you
arsonists? Was this
if you guys
planned out?
haven't seen this
Paid
video,
out?
I'll go find it right now. And you have I believe it's like 8 major fires simultaneously
Yeah,
coming
man.
off, visible on satellite simultaneously. And they pushed this narrative and it lasted maybe a good 2 or 3 months before they just, oh, well, let's shut up about it. All of New York was coated in smoke. And then, oh, after the fact, it comes out that it was a bunch of climate cultists that went out there and choreographed lighting all these fires, lightning my big old butt.
Yeah, so
It's
actually,
more of a
guys, there were
NATO
weather
thing.
maps that showed that they weren't lightning strikes. It was perfectly calm days. And so what happened all of a sudden, and when I looked at it right away, so some of the first guys I called, I had some pals in the military, and they said, "Whoa, that looks like military level tactics speak, not just arsonists." He said, "That's like it's a military tactic, is burn out your enemy." And he said, well, we
like a
have the
direct
capacity
weapon?
to go in to preset locations, set up incendiary devices that can be remotely triggered from anywhere off a cell phone. You can just go click, and they'll all go off. So I think initially they said there was 13, but I saw an updated map on it 2 days ago that was actually 26. Actually, you know what? A guy was talking about it on Joe Rogan 2 days ago. And he said, yeah, so that that part of the climate agenda, that was no accident. And the timing, like everything about the time, you got to remember, guys, in Jasper, the biggest fire that when Jasper burned, 50 professional firefighters showed up in Jasper as homes were getting ready to burn with 20 pieces of the best firefighting equipment. They even had airport runway gear, stuff that you could throw foam out 300 yards with that thing. And the federal government said, no, you're not allowed to fight this fire. They made them all stand down. 50 professional firefighters, and Jasper was getting burnt out. And that was all to help push that climate narrative, right? Oh, things are burning down. It's all happening. I mean, Jim knows exactly that video that I'm talking about. Most of you guys have probably seen it back in 2023. And you got to remember, Nova Scotia's largest forest fire in 2023 in our history was arson.
Yeah.
And they didn't allow our top investigator to go in because yet the person did it. He would have got his ass nailed to the wall. RCMP, the federal police force, went in and said, well, we can't find anybody to lay charges on. Natural Resources went in and they just give them some periphery things, but they wouldn't let our chief, our number one investigator go in because I know Mike would have nailed their hide to the wall. They'd have been paying, $500,000 in suppression cost minimum, maybe a couple of million. So there's a bigger agenda behind it all. Go ahead, Bettina.
Yeah, well, no, I have Stella. She raised her hand, so go right ahead, Stella.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. G'day, Peter. Good to see you again.
Hey.
I was gonna ask about the justification of, was it completely removing the fire towers? And then I kind of put my hand down because I thought, well, I guess it's just through technology. We can see stuff with satellites and drones now, so we don't need them. Was that sort of how they justified that, or?
No, the justification was based on one thing and one thing only. It's that everybody that was currently in the woods by 2012 was carrying cell phones. And what they forgot to consider was in the Cape Breton Islands, there's areas up there when the weather gets really bad and the fishing's not the best, there's just nobody up there. And we have remote areas, same as they have in Alberta. Alberta still has over 120 fire towers. I don't know how many they have left in BC, but they have them. Saskatchewan has them. PEI, Nova Scotia don't have them, and I think we may still have some left in Newfoundland. But the decision was based on that one thing. No, we're going to tear down all the towers with technology. Everybody has a cell phone now, and they can all call in. And the first thing Tim Houston did was ban everybody from being in the woods and eliminated our early warning system. And then Bruce, so I see Bruce laughing. To
Yeah,
even make it
okay.
worse, anybody that got a work permit to do any kind of work, like in the forestry and mining and these type of things, one of the conditions on your permit, you're not allowed to be in the woods with a cell phone or a smartwatch, because they were worried your batteries or your phones were going to catch them. And they actually were dumb enough to say that out loud, right?
Yeah, okay.
Meanwhile, you can still drive electric vehicles in the woods. But yeah, that was the justification. And it's just, so if it was just one or two things, guys, you could say that it was coincidence. But one of the things I learned as an investigator over 29 years was what we start to do is we take little pieces of evidence, and all you ever do, it's like a piece to a puzzle. And you get enough of these pieces of evidence that are all pointing in the one direction. And eventually you're sitting there with 60 pieces of evidence all pointing in the same direction. So then it's no longer coincidence. Now it's like, okay, this is coordinated. So
Yep.
what's happening in Nova Scotia appears to me, as a professional who's done this, it's way more than what you see. It's not about keeping people safe, because people walking in the woods doesn't start fires. A person fishing doesn't start a fire. A person on a bicycle on a paved trail in the woods does not start a fire. And those are the terms that were given, and it's never happened before, right? Anyways,
that's why I was asking about the justification, because so far in so many events, even here in Australia when we had our really bad fires, not even the recent ones in 1920, but even back in 2009, we had Black Saturday and all that. But yeah, it was a similar sort of thing. It's just the justification for a lot of things was just well, it's the same thing here. Yeah, a lot of justification is just really, really weak. The things that they're bringing in, and as you say, it's just take a step back, and it really is honestly like a game of chess, isn't it? They're just putting everyone into place. They've infiltrated the cabinets, as said. It's just really obvious that it's a big plan, because it's just the justification that they come up with is so weak and so ridiculous, and it defies my logic how people are actually letting these things happen with those justifications. So, yeah, I don't know. It's astounding how these things are being excused, yet they're still happening, you know.
So the other thing too,
it's so obvious. That's
well,
the
it's
point.
obvious, but here's what's happening. It's not happening on just one level, and it's not one's group. And it's something that Mark had mentioned when he was talking, is how well coordinated these folks are. And you got to remember, not only are they well coordinated, they have unlimited budgets. Money means nothing. In order to get what they're trying to do, I mean, for those folks to drop $1 billion on a project means nothing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm serious here,
compete.
guys. If we don't win this battle here in Nova Scotia, we're down the tubes. Don't get me wrong. I think we're on the precipice most of the time anyways. And every day I'm just trying to pull as many people back as we can. But every time I think, every day it's one step forward and at least one back sometimes too. Because the smartest move the federal government ever made in Canada was taking complete control and bribing mainstream media. Because if you're down here in Nova Scotia, guys, we don't have a whole lot of media. And the people that are listening to mainstream media, they're victims of every scientific PSYOP plan that was ever developed by the Tavistock Institute. I mean, everything that once you understand what you're looking at, I mean, I can hear the first 3-4 sentences out of something, right? It goes right back to me saying it's no longer forest fires, it's wildfires, right? Every newscast in Nova Scotia for the last 3 weeks has started off with the wildfire report, even on days when it's pouring rain. Yesterday, right? So yesterday we had 3 inches of rain where I'm at, and it led off the wildfire report. And the other concern that I have too, guys, and this is weird because every place in the province got hammered with rain, and they only got a fraction, maybe a quarter of an inch where that big fire is burning. And the other thing that's under that big fire is in the province right now is the province has opened up uranium deposits to be mined. Nobody was interested they didn't get anybody that wanted to buy into uranium mining in Nova Scotia. And all of a sudden on one of these big deposits, that's being cleared off right now by forest fire. Just saying. And
I believe that is happening here in BC too, especially in the Okanagan where I live, or close to the Okanagan. There's lots of uranium going from the east to the west, from the Kootenays to the west. West Coast. So we sit on a lot of uranium here too. And there was a big land grab just recently happening in OK Falls. It's called OK Falls. It's just right at the end of the Okanagan Lake. So we've got Troy hand up, and then right after Troy there is Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind Peter to maybe talk about what we spoke about last night, about the complete dismantling of the system the way it is. You had mentioned last night about in the Truro area that they had only two novice firefighters in charge of the area for the weekend. And maybe you could also touch on the fact that they're not allowing anybody to come and help. Like there's been farmers that have offered to come and help. There's been retired firefighters. You want to touch on all that, Peter?
Yeah, so guys, the Department of Natural Resources in Nova Scotia has 27 district offices. Each one of them in the summer, when fire season starts, they're supposed to have a full 5-person initial attack crew. So between 2000 and 2010, they cut those crews back to 3. And in the center of our province, in the 3rd biggest town in all of Nova Scotia, in that district, we only had 2 junior firefighters on staff when the province was in crisis situation, according to the premier, and the most fire experience those 2 people had, they were on 5 grass fires earlier this spring. They don't have the training they need. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the leadership. They have none of what's required. So you can't chalk it all up to incompetence. I would like to chalk it up to incompetence, but the overwhelming preponderance, what we refer to in law enforcement, the overwhelming preponderance of circumstantial evidence is all pointing to this is coordinated. This is coordinated to the point, even to the point when you start doing DEI hires, you can blame it on them, but you know, right? If you hire an idiot to fix the motor on your car, you can pretty much guarantee he's going to wreck the motor on your car. And then you go, well, the guy's an idiot. No, the guy who put him in there knew exactly what he was doing. And that's what's happening all across Nova Scotia. But I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm seeing it all across Canada. And I'm seeing it in elections, and I'm seeing it all over. And right now, Troy was saying, we have a lot of qualified people showing up to help, and they're just turning them down. Right. And it happened to me in 2023 when those big fires were going on. I put together a team of experts. We had over 200 years experience between 5 of us. And we were trained at all levels of incident command. And when homes were burning down, I called the premier, I called the minister of natural resources. I said, look, put us where we need to be. We can be boots on the ground in 4 hours anywheres, and we'll give you, we'll stay for a minimum of 18 days straight. And for 5 days in a row, we offered for 5 days in a row, they wouldn't hire us. So I got pissed off, and I made a video that got 177 million views. And that's when I really got interested in doing this, because you know what? I am just not going to tolerate being lied to by politicians anymore. I'm going to be a whistleblower from here on in. And I will bury these sons of bitches. I don't care who they are, right? I got a, what does Liam Neeson said? I got a particular interesting skill set. They tend to leave me alone.
Good. Okay, Mark or Troy, is there anything else?
No, that was it. Perfect. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. Good luck with the Bears.
Thanks.
Mark.
Yeah, so I put in the messages that I have experience writing letters of conditional acceptance to my local municipality here. And so after having written a couple of them to a couple of nearby municipalities, I don't pay any tickets, bylaws, licenses, fees, fines, nothing.
Good for you.
And right, so what I'm saying is, let's just say you had someone like a hunter who definitely wants to go into the woods, and maybe they're even going to ignore the sign or whatever. What I'm saying is that if they knew about my experience in letters of conditional acceptance, then it's not like I invented that. This is a well-known thing.
Yep.
That they could have backup or be shown how to do this. And there's no court, and there's no lawyers. In fact, if you bring a lawyer in, all that's going to do is slow you down. And in fact, that's what I wish that Canadian vet had done instead of collecting money to go to court. I wish he had to use letter of conditional acceptance to show, to really bring out the fraud. So I can go into more about what is contained in the letter of conditional acceptance, but just as a broad overview, what you do is you send them a letter and you say, I will cooperate with you and the fine you want me to pay, but I have some questions. And the next section is you give about 8 questions, and these are all fair questions, but any one of those questions, if answered, would reveal the fraud completely. So they're not really answerable questions. And then after that, you say, well, if you do answer my questions, and they have to be signed, by the way, you can't just answer them, then I will definitely pay your $75 fine. But I'm not a slave. I don't just work for anybody, and my minimum rate is $5,000 an hour, CR's minimum, paid up front. And then I will happily pay your $75 fine. And then I give them a whole list of other charges for anything else that they might do. So my wife has just got a reminder to get her dog license. Well, that little dog license is going to open up a can of whoop ass on them. Okay. So now, if you want, now to me that seems like if it was me in Nova Scotia, I would happily walk in the woods because I have basically, they run from me here. They don't dare confront me, and it's really weird. They're scared the hell out of me. So I myself, knowing this, I would not be worried about anything in Nova Scotia. So if you wanted to get this out to everybody, you may want to consider that.
So Mark, one of the guys who's on our court case on September 5th in that charter challenge, he sent me a copy of a conditional acceptance that he just sent to the premier and the minister, doing exactly what you said. And he gave them 14 days to respond in writing. And if not, the amount of money that he was charging them was outrageous, the amount of money they're going to have to pay him. And they have to be able, he said the same thing, I'll cooperate, but I need proof. I need the data that you're using to make these decisions. I need your legal right to be able to do this under the charter. And he named these different things, and it was exactly what you just said. And actually, I was talking to him last night, and I'm going to be talking to him more about that tomorrow because I am interested in doing that.
Yeah, and there's a big mistake that people make, but it's very easily fixed, and that this is a weapon of psychological warfare, all right? And so if you just go after the mayor and the council and just give it to them, you do not want to do that because these are like the, what do you call it, the Soviet commissars. They're heavily politically indoctrinated. And you cannot sway them. They'll do anything, cheating and otherwise. However, what you have to realize is that the true Achilles heel of this whole system is the minions, the clerks, the finance clerks, the police, the teachers. The minions are the ones that if the minions realize that they're involved in a criminal enterprise, they will flood out. And then no matter how many rules and decrees that they give, if there's nobody to do it, the whole system falls apart. So I take my letter of conditional acceptance to the minions and I say, hey, check this over for me, read through this, stamp it that you received it. And then when they show it to the mayor and they say, hey, what the heck is all this about? The mayor has a gigantic shit their pants, cry and vomit moment. Yeah, and they will like give this guy whatever the hell he wants because I don't want him ever coming back here. And this is actually how I got the LGBTQ flag to get taken down in our local municipality. I went in there and I left, and 3 days later the flag came down. Wow. So yeah, so it's not just a letter of conditional acceptance. You got to understand this is psychological warfare, and you have to choose the right target, and they will flee from you.
I like that idea, Mark.
Interesting.
Well, just let me know if you want help, because I'm saying that's how you destroy this whole thing, easy like cheesy.
Good for you. Thank you, Mark. Jim, go right ahead.
So yeah, you brought me back, Peter. So I got to share this with everybody else, because for those who haven't seen,
the fire.
Yeah, the climate cult looks like when they're playing their games and they're pretending like, Oh, this was all lightning. No, this is clearly those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, and those who know the past are doomed to sit idly by while others repeat it. So this is the video in question right here, and it's pretty unmistakable and seen. So very, very quickly, all of these fires are lit simultaneously.
Even look at that, guys. 1, 2, 3.
So that's the video. Now, my website, Climate Viewer 3D, I can actually go back in time and I can bring up any satellite image from any time. So right now I'm looking at June 3rd, 2023. I'm in Quebec. If you want to see that, I can actually just make this opaque, turn down the opacity. You can see whereabouts I am. So we're in southern Quebec. And this is on June 3rd.
Yeah, they all started at almost the exact same time.
Yeah. And they tried to blame this on a guy named Brian Perret, I believe it's pronounced. He claimed to have lit at least 14 fires himself. So maybe the guy did a loop here. But this was clearly coordinated. There's a group called Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yep.
Yeah, they're like the Antifa of climate. There were a lot of claims, back channel claims, that this was the work of Extinction Rebellion. You go to the very next day, you can start to see now we've got the smoke, starting to billow down all the way across the Great Lakes. This is when it ended up, everybody was bitching about it being, New York having like red skies and all of that. So the date was June 2nd, 2023. And this is about the most clear case of that. The similarities here that I see just from, being in the conspiracy realm and hearing Paradise Fire, Maui Fire, Quebec fires. And they're always like, but my Jewish space lasers. And then, of course, Peter rightly brought up earlier, but my drones. When you have fireball dropping drones, when you've got religious zealots, because don't get it twisted, science is a break from religion, and these are religious zealots, these climate cultists. And anything they can do to justify their lockdowns, their controls of, all resources on the planet. That's the tenets of technocracy, is a scientific big dictatorship. So anything they can do to lock down water, earth, human resources, that's what technocracy seeks to control. So the commonality between climate change, these lockdowns that are occurring right now, oh, you can't go out there because my climate change, because my technocracy, because control. We saw this with COVID. Now we're seeing it with climate. They talk about climate pandemics. All of this is a justification for control of human behavior. And it's only going to accelerate until people recognize the larger pattern, and that is that the scientific dictatorship that Orwell and Brave New World, they warned us about this, that this was the coming thing. Those books, Brave New World in 1984, were literally written about Technocracy Inc., which was born in the 1930s. Wasn't it Elon Musk's granddad was the president of the Canadian chapter of Technocracy Inc., who was arrested? So, I mean, do I have to draw a prettier picture for people to understand that it doesn't matter race, religion, they want to pit, oh, it's the Jews, it's the Muslims, it's the Christians, it's the alt-right, it's the alt-left. No, despite what your, you know, socioeconomic background is, your geographic location, your religious beliefs, the ideology that pervades all of the people that are doing all of these nasty things that I keep hearing about, whether it's chemtrails, geoengineering, or freaking wildfires and climate cults, is technocracy and something else, the dirty word that even Patrick Wood, the king of technocracy himself, will not mention, and that is communitarian law or communitarianism. This is the law that seeks to undermine your, and I'm not familiar with Canadian law, so I'm just going to, you know, make it about our U.S. Constitution. It is supranational unions overriding your constitutional rights for the greater good or the good of the community. So in this case, it's good for the community to stay the hell out the woods because my climate change. So screw your individual rights. We're talking about communitarian law. Technocracy is the ideology. Communitarianism and communitarian law is the weapon. So once you recognize these two ideologies, you can see them in everything. It's kind of like when you buy a Volkswagen Beetle and you drive it down the highway for the first time. Everybody's driving a Volkswagen Beetle because now you just happen to see them. You wouldn't have noticed them any other time.
It's called reticular activation.
That's right. That's right. But that's the kind of point I wanted to make. So in the case of the Quebec fire, in the case of Maui and the Paradise fire, you know, the two extremes are so stark that people should be able to catch this. On the one hand, you've got the climate cult saying this is because climate change. On the other hand, you've got the activists, the truthers, the conspiratards saying, but it's lasers from space. And in each one of those cases, I was making the argument that whether it was with Maui, we had the wind conditions, I could pay a crackhead $5 and give him a gas can and a Bic lighter and burn that fucking city to the ground.
Pretty
Would
much.
you disagree, Peter?
No,
that
not at all. As a matter of fact, even the Susie Lake fire over there, the one that we had just outside of Halifax that I investigated, and they were saying, well, it's human caused, but we're not sure. And that's right near a homeless encampment. And I'm willing to bet that someone was paid to do that, right? Now, that's speculation, but I'm looking at the fact that there's been permits and applications in there to put 700 units in 12 to 14 story apartments. And it's another small community with 60 homes in it, right where it just burned.
Yeah.
And the biggest fire we have right now in our province right now that's causing all the commotion, and the premier's using it as a justification to shut us down. They went in and said, well, we think it might have been dry lightning, but we don't know. So all of a sudden, the biggest fire that we've had here in the last 2 years, nobody can tell you how it got started, and they won't allow our chief investigator to go in and determine a cause of the fire. But it started in the middle of nowhere, and we didn't have any lightning that night. So something tells me, you know, and I'm just, all I ever look at is evidence. But all of a sudden that it started in the middle of nowhere on top of a uranium deposit, and how easy it would have been to fire that one off with a drone. I mean,
and as an arson investigator, you understand that most people don't understand this about arson. With arson, you rule out everything else until arson is the only solution that's left. Am I right?
Yeah. And so what happens? So in Nova Scotia, they won't allow you to declare it as arson if there's any ambiguity left. If it looks like it was started right here and there's footprints here, but there's no cigarette butt and there's nothing else. It just, our government will force you to say it was spontaneous combustion before in most cases they'll admit that it's arson, because it looks bad, because they're not doing anything to deal with it. Since 2003 and I think between 2003 and 2022, we had data there. We had 1,144 arson fires. And as it turns out, we had, I believe, 302 that were, they were indeterminate. But in most cases, when we were doing investigations, indeterminate was almost always arson, but you couldn't say 100%. So they told us you're not allowed to call it arson. You're going to have to call it unknown. And you start looking around at the data, how many fires are unknown cause. Anyway, guys, I mean, all we can do on this is one of the things Mark said. We're trying to get as organized down here as we're possible. I don't turn down invites to any of these things because no matter where I go, I keep running into more like-minded people. And it's like Mark talking about what he's doing. And then that just came across my desk here 2 days ago with somebody, a buddy of mine, doing the exact same thing. And he's adamant that it's going to work because he's going to force the government to give out information that either they don't have or they're not going to be able to produce. And as soon as they can't produce it within that 14-day period, he actually set it up that they're going to have to pay his costs and fees, and they're exorbitant. They're crazy. He's charged them over 150 grand, I think, for his time and effort and the rest of it. And I think, you know what? I think he boxed them in. Before this ends tonight, guys, I'd like to talk to all of you about a tool that every one of us wants to start using. And all of these crazy bastards are using it against us, and it's Grok. I know some people don't want to use AI, but on legal matters, we've been able to do stuff that we're dealing with using Grok and another AI called Perplexity, which is more legal based. And that thing has done more work for us that we don't have to pay lawyers for than you can imagine. I'm talking about everything from court documents, procedures. There it is, overview of the hack and squirt. Did you pull that up with Grok? Yes, you did. So I'll find that. I'll be digging that up. I'll be on that tomorrow, Jim. So that is swear to God, guys, if you want a tool that's free, and that's like having a genie in the bottle that you can take to war with you and let it out of the bottle anytime you want and start asking questions. All you got to do is get really good at prompts. And it'll lie to you sometimes too, because what it does, it'll give you stuff back with a liberal slant. You have to tell it, I don't want any liberal slant. I want this straight up. Don't give me any spin. And they'll come back with completely different stuff. You can trick them into giving you the truth. And it's a super, super powerful tool. Even for what Mark was talking about getting organized, it's absolutely, I don't even know how to word what the kid tell you how powerful.
Can I give a word of advice for anybody who's like, if you're new to using AI or you're getting the improper results, what you want to do is called prompt engineering. So when you go to talk to so in the example that I give here, I said, you're an expert. I tell the AI to begin with, you are an expert on environmental, chemical, and and arson investigation. I want you to give me examples of, summaries of, cite, and give me MLA or APA formatted citations for everything you reference. So in the case of all of the stuff that I'm pulling up, I'm just I'm familiar with the topics, but I'm not familiar with your location. So to make it hyper specific to Nova Scotia, which I know nothing about, I'd love to visit.
Not now.
That's where maybe I'll have to wait, whenever I can actually go in the woods and enjoy it. But that's the kind of thing you want to do. So in the case of we're doing an EPA petition, you're an environmental lawyer, and you're, just giving it the prompts of how I want you to respond. If you tell it you're a school grade teacher and I want you to tell me a narrative story and then ask it the question, you're going to get a completely different response. So that's one of the big things that's really I've been able to squeeze more out of AI. And you're going to find that Grok, Perplexity, if you're using Gemini, which is Google, you can actually go to aistudio.google.com instead of going to gemini.google.com. And you can get that thing to tell you the truth on just about anything. If you go to the public facing gemini.google.com, it'll lie to your face, boldface, all day long.
All day long. So one other thing too, guys, is what we're finding it incredibly helpful for in our case is case law. So when we're putting together what we're doing right now in Supreme Court, we're asking Groks to give us case law, and we're walking into court with stuff, and quite literally, what we've been able to do here in the last 8 months probably would have cost us at least $1 million in legal fees that we
Yep.
get done for free. So what happens is we do it all, and then at the very end, when it's all done, we may get the sharpest mind that's willing to help us to review it. But you can actually nail it right down to everything that I want to know exactly how this applies in Nova Scotia. So every single thing that we're doing here right now that I'm fighting the province on, they're getting buried because I'm finding news articles from 55 years ago. I mean, it will find anything that's out there, guys. It is the most powerful, incredible tool to get done what you want to get done, and it simplifies life. Guys, I do have to be somewhere early in the morning, and it's just hitting midnight here.
That's right.
How much longer are we going to go, Bettina? I'd like to answer any more questions.
You would like to, so we have 2 hands up. So if this is going to be short, then are you okay with that, Peter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's great. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, Gordon, go right ahead.
Hey, can you
Hey,
hear
Gordon.
me? I don't have any questions. I just got some comments to make. There's a couple things. First of all, within Nova Scotia, nobody. I'm from Nova Scotia as well, and I don't see anybody talking about why we're having a drought. And the reason we're having a drought is because they're creating the drought with the geoengineering and the chemtrails and all that bullshit spraying every day. And within the chemtrails and the geoengineering, there is incendiary products that cause these fires to burn faster and hotter when they do catch, adding to the glyphosate issue. Nobody talks about that as being part of the problem. The second thing I wanted to mention is this ideology. People, I cannot believe that I listen to these conversations and all of the information that people know, and this is no attack on anybody by any stretch of the imagination. I appreciate you all, and I've seen some people here that I'd like to connect with too moving forward, but we are living in a worldwide agenda. Everything that's going on, they're telling us about. And somehow we still have this belief based on decades of indoctrination, what we've been, cognitive dissonance and all this stuff, that we're going to address these issues and fix this problem within some sort of court system that's designed to keep us from having any standing. We're going to fix this problem based on our rights on paperwork like bills and charters and all these things. That's designed to keep us from having any standing. We're going to fix this problem by a political situation within the confines of what exists today, and saying things like liberal or conservative or liberal slants and all these things, when really there is no difference. They're both 2 wings of the same bird. Neither one is on our side. And when one is not in power, of course, they're going to say all of these things that people resonate with to a degree, because the other party is the one that's so-called doing that. The liberals are not doing this stuff. The liberals are not making the decision to do this stuff. Tim Houston is not a closet liberal. They are all the same. That's the fact. Tim Houston is a criminal, and I call him out on it all the time, no question, but he's not a closet liberal. They're all on the same team. They're all against us. The government is the enemy of the people. The courts don't bring any justice. When we talk about these court rulings, as an example, in Nova Scotia and in the country or the land or whatever, they made the ruling that Robert Strang, he did the blocking of people having protests in Halifax, and they ruled that that was not lawful. But did Robert Strang ever get punished for doing that? No. They made a ruling. Big deal. They made a ruling, Justice Mosley made a ruling nationwide that the invocation of the Emergencies Act was illegal. Did Trudeau or the Liberal government get in any trouble? No. None of these findings in these courts actually bring any actual change to anything. It's just a finding. And further to that, the biggest thing that is so stressing is most of us don't really comprehend what we're doing. And I mean that in the sense that all of this stuff that's going on is real. The fires are real. COVID, the whole COVID fiasco was real. People were suffering. All these things are real. Everything that's going on is real. But further to that, when you really understand what's going on in this world and you really understand the power structure, all of these things that we're facing that are real, that we all talk about all the time, are nothing more than distractions. Why are they distractions? Because they're keeping us engaged at a lower level while the powers that be continue to crush us. Until we stop focusing all of our energy on the distractions and focus our energy onto creating solutions to deal with the problem, which is the politicians in each landmass, in each province, in each state, all across this whole world, then we're never going to get out of this. And when we think that, you know, we're going to put all of our hopes in behind these political parties that exist in this system and they're going to change it, this conservative thing drives me nuts. The Pierre Poilievre thing drives me nuts. Absolutely nuts. Brian Mulrooney's a conservative. He signed us on to Agenda 2021 at the Rio Earth Summit, effectively signing over all of our municipalities to the United Nations control. Stephen Harper, you know, the great statesman, he signed us on to Agenda 2030. He signed us into a 31-year deal with FIPA that they can't change, and he did it surreptitiously behind the backs of everybody. And he backs Poilievre. He was grooming Poilievre. So we think that Poilievre is going to save us. And we think that Doug Ford's a closet liberal. It's all the same, man. It's all the same. And I'm going to soon come out with a solution. And some people think I'm a little bit aggressive because I'm all about these people are criminals. Fact is fact. And if the people would just stand up, we outnumber them incredibly. But that's not working because people don't see through that. They're too afraid, all of the other stuff. So I'm going to change. I'm going to change that, and I'll be coming out with something soon in this landmass. And if people really want change, then I'm not saying follow me because that's not what it's about. I'm not trying to be some big gigantic leader guy or anything like that. But people have got to start paying attention to what I'm saying, and I want to bring people on board to work with what I'm trying to accomplish here. Because everything we got to do. The only way we're getting out of this, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in the United States, Ireland, England, anywhere, the only way we're getting out of this anywhere is if the people take the power back and fix the problems within these systems that they built. Because these systems were built as they try to get us to believe to serve us, and there is not one system that serves us. The courts don't serve us. None of these things served us. None of these documents. Your rights do not come from a piece of paper. You are born with rights, and they're inherent and unalienable with a U, not I, because they've also changed that term, because inalienable rights can be transferred, unalienable rights cannot. People have got to start understanding the scope of the situation we're in, and we can play this game forever, going to court and all these challenges, and it's okay to fight the system and put pressure on it. I'm not dismissing that. But if that's where all of our energy is going to go to, we're never going to win this battle, and before we know it, digital stuff comes down, and once they put that digital stuff in, we're all screwed. Because if we're not going to follow the rules, we'll no longer be able to buy goods. We'll no longer be able to buy fuel. And if we think we're going to fight back after that, I would challenge every one of you to believe that you're wrong, because every ounce of energy we're going to have to spend at that point in time is survival. Because we're going to be cut completely out of the system if we're not going to follow all them rules.
Gordon, this is great. I think you're talking to a crowd that already is on board with you. Can you summarize yourself, please? Making it short for Peter.
Summarize, how do you mean?
Well, do you have an action plan or a step that you're going towards that you can?
I do, but I'm just tidying up some loose ends, and I don't want to, I've been quiet for a while. I used to talk a lot. I do a lot of lives on Facebook and so on, but I don't want to speak until I can tell people we're ready to go. So I'm just tidying up a few loose ends before I speak to that. And then once I do, I can just tell everybody, okay, we can go full blast. I don't want people, I don't want people waiting.
Share how to get in touch with you, or your website if you have one or something. That would be great, because I'm sure there's a lot of people ready.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'll put it in the chat. My Facebook is Gordon James Berry Jr. I'm connected with Peter anyway. I think we're friends on Facebook. And I'm not attacking anybody here, and I don't want to come across that way. I'm just frustrated that we're paying attention to all the distractions and fighting all these little battles. Well, like Peter said too, it's true. They've got unlimited resources and unlimited time, and while we're doing all this, they're planning their next move to stomp on us. It's so frustrating, guys.
It is frustrating. Thank you very much, Gordon. Yeah, I just want to get Spencer, on right now so that we can keep it short for Peter, because he's 4 hours ahead of me. So it's getting late. Go ahead.
Howdy, folks. I don't know how I would follow that up. Gordon. Like, that was just a great speech. I think I should probably be the exit speech, but in using just wanted to comment in using the like drafting legal documents. It's good to use a couple different AIs. I found one that will do research the appellate law, and as you're sort of formulating your case, I found it's best to work backward from the appellate law, from the appeals court and the case law, and work backward from that, and then also use different AIs to check each AI instead of going through one particular AI. There's some
True. Yeah.
great legal AIs that some of them specialize in appellate law, and that's what I found works best in the United States. But anyway, great to be part of the club.
Thank you very much for coming on. So then I'll just go ahead and wrap this up for tonight. I would like to say thank you very, very much, Peter, for coming on again. So this was an absolute incredible talk tonight. I really, really love the interaction. So I hope everybody is, get something out of it. And thank you for this incredible information on your end, Peter. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
I really appreciate the invite. By the way, too, guys, if the easiest way to get a hold of me, I think I put my email up there, but just if you can reach me there and DM me at X. Every other platform I end up there, I am at thank you, at Peter McIsaac. And then my email is, I think I'd put it in there, was prmi bullrun@gmail.com. I'd put it up there somewhere, guys. It's in that data. But if anybody wants me to do anything or help them out in some kind of way, give me a shout. Gordon, we need to have a coffee soon, buddy. Anyway, just saying, a lot of this stuff I'd rather needs to get done in person on a park, on a picnic table where no one else is around.
that's right. Yeah.
Thanks again, Bettina.
Oh, you're most welcome, and thank you as well. And thanks everybody else who was on tonight as well. That was great. I really appreciated everybody and all your comments and everything. I have to review them. I have to revisit everything because I was just listening and I did not pay attention to the chat. I'm sorry. Anyway, so then let's say good night. And again, appreciate everybody and thank you so much. And keep in touch. Geoengineeringfreecanada.com is our website. There is everything. The Substack, link is on there as well. Our email is on there as well. Please keep in touch and look and see if there is another great call coming your way. So it's always going to be a pleasure to have everybody on again. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys.